Welcome to the No Rain, No Rainbows podcast. This is a show about pushing through obstacles and hard times in order to live a happy and fulfilled life. I'm your host, Ted Phaeton, and it's a pleasure to have you joining us. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Let's grow. Welcome back, everybody. We're sitting here with Dr. Blake Shusterman out of Greenville, South Carolina. Doctor, thank you for joining us this morning, a.k.a. the Cooking Doc.
That's right, the Cooking Doc.
Yeah.
Multiple identities here.
Multiple identities. I've seen some of your recipes, some of the pictures you've posted. I'd love to hop into some of the cooking and the healthy eating aspect of what you're all about. But before that, why not introduce yourselves to our listeners, let them know who you are, where you're from, and what it is you do.
Sure. So I am a nephrologist, which is a technical term for a kidney doctor. And I've been down in Greenville for about 10 years. I work for a private practice called Carolina Nephrology. Yeah. I am originally from Baltimore, Maryland. I lived there for about 8 years, and then I've kind of been all over between that time and coming down to Greenville. You know, you move around a lot with medical school and undergraduate and residency. But I settled down here about 10 years ago.
Did you always know you wanted to be a doctor, or was it something you kind of fell into through school?
You know, I had an inkling kind of going through high school that I wanted to be a physician. And so you kind of have to decide early because you have to do pre-med classes in undergraduate school. But I kind of have I kind of looked at it as where do my strengths fit in? And so I've got kind of a scientific mind. Yeah. But I'm also kind of a people person in that I can emotionally relate to people. So I have that kind of connection. And I thought the physician path would be kind of a nice merging of those two strengths. And so that's how it got me there.
I'll tell you what, I have nothing but respect for what you do, and I thank you for it, because as I was getting into high school, my older sister, she's a chemist, and I remember the dreaded organic chemistry class.
Oh my God.
And if you can make it through that, oh man, what was that like?
Well, I went to undergraduate at Tufts in Boston, and so organic chemistry was an 8 o'clock class in a frigid Boston winter, and it was tough to go to get up and go, and it was really tough. Yeah. But it kind of made sense. It's one of those things where if you can understand the basics, then you can really make sense of the problems. And I don't want to be a chemist. I don't know. It's your sister, you said?
Yeah.
I don't know how she does that, but I got through it.
Yeah. I mentioned that because I feel as if, so for me, broadcast meteorology was my major. And I remember vividly the first weather class I sat in, and it was, first it was the wrong class. It was thermodynamics of the upper atmosphere, which was way over my head for a sophomore just trying to get into it. But I remember the professor drilling into the students, talking about how hard the class was going to be. And I feel like when you have a major, whether it's broadcast meteorology or whether it's into chemistry or medicine, I feel as though the coursework almost tests your resilience to make sure you really want it, because they almost have to weed out the kids that aren't really there.
That's true.
Yeah. Did you notice that while you were going through studies, some folks who kind of just couldn't cut it?
For sure. I mean, in some ways, I think that's helpful, right? Yeah. You get people that really maybe don't have the dedication to want to get through it. You know, in some ways also, though, I feel that I don't use any organic chemistry in my day-to-day work. Yeah. And so even if somebody can't make it through a hard organic chemistry class, I still believe that they may be able to be a really good doctor.
Absolutely.
So, it kind of cuts both ways.
Yeah.
And just when you were talking about the weather stuff, funny story, when I was growing up, all my family used to call me Weatherman.
Really?
Because I loved the weather so much. That would have probably been my backup career had I not gone into medicine.
You probably would make a great weatherman.
Thank you.
I'd say let's switch careers, but I wouldn't be good at with the knife. So talk about finishing up medical school and getting into the practice. I'm sure you probably had to go through residency first. How do you select? I've always been, I guess, fascinated how the specialty comes about.
Sure.
Yeah.
For me, it was a couple things. It was a process of elimination, and it was having a good mentor. Nice. So, medical school, you go through all your different specialties, quickly rule out the things that you don't want to do. Knew I didn't want to do OBGYN, pediatrics. I liked the operating room, but the sterile environment just wasn't for me. Yeah. I couldn't quite keep still enough not to break the sterile field. Yeah. So then kind of internal medicine is the choice where you get to talk to a lot of people and you're really focusing on the medicine in the body. So I made that choice, and you go through 3 years of internal medicine residency. Then you have to pick a specialty after that if you want. And so, again, it's kind of process of elimination. I didn't want to do cardiology or gastroenterology, and then the kidneys were interesting. And then I had a fabulous mentor at the University of Virginia who just kind of showed me how I could succeed in that career.
Yeah.
And I just loved everything. He was such a smart guy and such a great teacher that I just followed kind of right down his path.
Yeah. And if you don't mind, Dr. Shusterman, educate me on the kidney, its importance in the body and its usefulness.
I'll just say first that mentor's name is Dr. Mitch Rosner, in case he ever happens to listen to this.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the kidneys you have 2 kidneys that kind of sit under your ribs and your back, kind of on either side of the spine. And their main job really is to filter the blood. So they get rid of all the extra toxins that your body doesn't need after you eat food. They get rid of all the extra fluid that your body doesn't need. You drink too much water, your kidneys know exactly how much water to urinate out, exactly how much potassium if you've eaten too much potassium. So that's their main job. Yeah. They also have a lot of other little jobs. They're very complicated little organs. They produce hormones that do things like help the blood cells grow. They produce hormones that are related in your blood pressure monitoring, in your bone health. They really do a lot of things.
Yeah. So they're almost like the filter system of your body.
They're the filter system, exactly.
Yeah. And I asked that question to kind of set up this segue because, as anyone that wants to follow you on Instagram or follow you on social, TheCookingDoc, and you talk about hashtag change your buds and the importance of a healthy diet. I imagine that might tie into having a healthy diet can help your filtering system operate a little bit better, correct?
Exactly.
Yeah. Where did the passion for healthy eating, cooking food, was that always something that was something you wanted to pursue and then you married it with being a doctor, or was that something that came about later in life?
Not particularly. Yeah, it's really something that came about during my practice here in South Carolina. I tell this story. The first day I got out of fellowship, I had a tour of a dialysis unit. And a dialysis unit is where people go when their kidneys have failed completely. Okay. And they go, if they need dialysis, they go to a dialysis center and they get on a machine 3 times a week for about 4 hours at a time. And that machine cleans their blood the way their kidneys would. It doesn't do a perfect job, but it cleans their blood. And so my first day of working down here, I was meeting one of my partners out at the dialysis unit. And when I got there, I did my little tour, and in the lobby were these 2 vending machines. Okay, so on the left side were potato chips, Fritos, Mars bars, Hershey bars, M&Ms. On the left side, there's Coca-Cola, Orange Crush, Mountain Dew. Yeah. And the 2 biggest risk factors for kidney disease are diabetes and high blood pressure. Wow. And all I could think to myself is, here we are, we're trying to educate these people about how to make changes and how to do the right thing for their body, and we're providing them with absolutely the wrong food. Yeah. So that was kind of an eye-opener for me. And then kind of over the course of the next 5 to 10 years, as some other things happened, I kind of stumbled into the cooking doc.
Yeah, and I'd like to unpack that more, but first, what would you say to somebody who might not have, I don't want to say bad habits, let's say less than perfect eating habits, like my executive producer who always has a bag of candy with him everywhere he goes. I felt bad when you walked in. I was like, there's a bag of candy and we have the cooking doc in the studio.
I don't judge.
Yeah.
But first thing, I don't judge.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody with a less than perfect diet, how they can kind of improve their habits a little bit, maybe add some healthy substitutions?
So the first thing I tell people is if they're looking to kind of make changes towards a healthier diet, this is something that they want to make a long-term, something that's going to stick with them for the long term. So, somebody who's 35, 40, 50, if they have a lot of habits that aren't what I would call healthy, these are things that have built up over 35 to 50 years or longer. So to just kind of go out one day and say, oh, I'm going to be healthy, I'm going to change everything, it doesn't work.
Yeah.
For a lot of people, it doesn't work. And that's why fad diets often don't work. So I kind of take a step back and I say, well, where are the things that we can impact immediately? Mm-hmm. Bags of candy that are always with us, things like that, you know.
Sad.
Andre's shedding a tear.
Low tone of voice.
But, you know, if you have otherwise healthy diet and you just have some candy occasionally, no big deal.
Yeah.
So anyways, try to find something initially that you can do to improve your diet and your health. Maybe it's stopping at fast food places.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, now I will say I do the veggie, like the little powder with almond milk in the morning, and it's supposed to give me like all my greens.
Oh, your veggies
Oh,
on
greens.
your greens.
How's that
now,
taste?
I do that. It's not great, but I just do it because I know I can eat candy throughout the day, and it kind of balances it out.
Yeah.
You know?
Right, the
'Cause,
balancing
I have
out.
to do that, but I also eat like a well-cooked meal every night.
Yeah.
Shout out to my lady, but that,
Yeah.
you know, I'm not just like junking. Where I will say though, now that I eat candy a lot, I have significantly decreased my fries, and
Yeah.
like I used to eat fries probably 3 times a week, like in all seriousness.
Yeah.
But
Well, everybody's got to have a little kind of
Like an indulgence.
indulgence.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to say it out loud, but every time I walk in the house, the first thing I do is have a handful of potato chips.
Nice.
That's my
Yeah.
indulgence.
Yeah.
You know, I go
Good,
in there.
yeah.
I got to have a few potato chips.
Yeah.
But really starting out with one thing that is that you can change, and then working up over the course of years to build in a healthy diet and healthy activities and a lifestyle that supports healthy eating.
Yeah.
It takes a long time. You set yourself up for success for the rest of your life, not just for 3 to 6 months.
Yeah, because to your point with the fad diets, and I've done the keto diet for
Yeah.
a while, and I mean, I did it for 8 months, and a lot of people were questioning how I was able to do it, and you know, shout out to my willpower.
Yeah.
So willpower is not the obstacle for me; it's more of a habit. Once the habit was formed, I was able to do it, but I stopped doing it because it didn't seem sustainable long term. Not necessarily for when you talk about a lifestyle diet, something that I can have for years in and out. That just didn't seem like something I could maintain, which is why I got off of it.
Sure.
But some people look at the keto diet for the goal of losing 30 pounds. And after they lose the 30 pounds, they go back to the habits that put the 30 pounds on. What have you found through the years of your journey through healthy eating or whatnot? What tends to stick most with people when trying to make that transition in life to a healthier lifestyle?
You know, that's a tough question. And some of the studies that they've done show that it really has to be individualized.
Yeah.
So different people respond to different types of diets. Some people find that they can do intermittent fasting in some way or form for the rest of their life. Some people find that Weight Watchers is just a way that works with them and will help them lose weight for the rest of their life. Yeah. So the first key is to find something that you can stick with for the long term. And you find something that... And the other way I think it helps is making sure that you find food that you can eat and enjoy that fits within that diet and within your lifestyle and within your family routines and things like that.
Yeah. What are some substitutes you found? Because my first introduction to you was during the Nest Fest, and you partook in making this amazing sweet potato pizza. And I'm the kind of person, when I eat pizza, I need meat on it. And I don't think there was any meat. I think it was sweet
all
potato,
veggie.
arugula, and it was delicious. So, I mean, I would have never thought to put sweet potato on a pizza, let alone cauliflower crust, I believe.
Yep.
So, I mean, when I hear this and I discover it, I'm eating it, and it's delicious, and it's outside of the realm of what I would have thought. How do you stumble upon those, I guess, substitutes, and what are some of the best ones you found?
A lot of it is, but it's tough. First of all, it's tough down here because oftentimes what works for me does not work for people that haven't been used to kind of quinoa and baked chicken for the long term. So, one of the other things I think I talked about in that presentation was the sweet tea, which is a big one for people down here because it's got a lot of carbohydrates or a lot of calories when you put a lot of sugar in there.
Yeah.
So, finding a sweet tea substitute that works for people is very difficult. But if you can kind of plan ahead, and one of the recipes on my site uses a little bit of mint and some orange to kind of sweeten the tea without it, that's a really helpful substitution.
Yeah.
Finding a healthy breakfast to eat, I think, is key. Mm-hmm. If you're a breakfast person, if you're not a breakfast person, then you don't necessarily need breakfast. But I eat the same thing for breakfast. I have basically 2 breakfasts that I alternate between.
Yeah.
And that's it.
I love that you said that.
No,
because
wait, what is it? Because I don't eat breakfast.
you know.
I don't know. It's crazy.
So I have a slice or 2 of some kind of thin whole grain toast. Dave's bread is what it's called. I smear on some sunflower butter, some slices of bananas, and some hemp hearts.
Ooh.
And it kind of fills me up, keeps me full. I don't have to think, right? If you're always trying to find something new and healthy, I mean, sure, I love to try different foods, but you need something stable in your routine.
Yeah.
So that's one. The other is kind of a similar thing, I guess, if I think about it, but it's a whole grain waffle that I top with fresh berries and some hemp hearts. Nice. So those are my go-to. My wife is always telling me that she's always rolling her eyes because I'm eating the same thing every morning.
Yeah. Well, to that point, my fiance, she's the type of person that needs something different every time she eats. Me, I mean, I'm boring. I can have broccoli, white rice, and grilled chicken all week long, and I'm fine.
You're fine.
Yeah, but I know some people, they require a little bit of a variety of flavor as they go about it. So having the same thing for breakfast, it just won't cut it for someone like my fiance.
I mean, more power to her. It just, for me, it just takes more work.
Yeah.
If you're ready to kind of find different healthy variations or different healthy recipes and put them to work, I mean, that's great.
Yeah, but having something kind of set that you like kind of help simplify the process.
Exactly. I mean, you think about so many things during the day when you got to choose healthy things for lunch, for snack, for dinner. You're going to have dessert. Bombarded with all kinds of choices in the day, and trying to make healthy choices, the right choices that are good for your health, can be difficult. So having something that's just kind of stable, no thought, is very easy.
Yeah, and to that point too, willpower. A lot of people think you could just kind of do it all day, but it's finite. You don't have unlimited amount of willpower. So when you have to make healthy choices at dinner time and you've been deciding what to have for breakfast, for lunch, you might just be like, you know what, I'm just going to call the pizza place.
Exactly. And because that willpower, is it's not infinite, like you said, setting yourself up at home and setting up your life so that the healthier choices are easier to make. So you already have something available that you can just dig your hand into, a bag of nuts or something, whatever, is really important.
And something you said earlier about your breakfast with the thin slice of toast and the sunflower butter and the hemp hearts and stuff, and you said that fills you. And I mean, you're grown, I'm grown, and I've found, I went to Kuka Juice. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
Yeah.
They had a sandwich. They didn't have any meat. It's all plant-based. And I got a sandwich, and I think it was a soup or a shake, and I was like, this isn't much. Surprisingly, I had a hard time finishing half the sandwich and the juice because, I mean, these were full, wholehearted meals. What would you say to somebody who just doesn't think they'd be filled up by things like that?
Well, I think a lot of the problem is that people are trying to make healthy choices that don't fill them up, that are like a McDonald's salad, something like that maybe doesn't have a lot of nutrients in it. Or they may say that, I'm sure that the juice and sandwich that you got was $20, close to it, right? So they may say, well, I don't want to spend that much money on something that may not fill me up. But oftentimes those kind of shakes, along with the sandwich that's kind of well made, got wholesome ingredients, it probably will fill you up, and you may only need half of it.
Yeah.
And I think that without trying it and seeing how you do and having an open mind going into those kind of things, it's hard to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely.
But it filled you up, right?
Yeah, it did, and I was surprised, and it didn't just fill me up for the hour. It felt me up for a good couple of hours before my next meal.
Yeah.
Which I was usually, like you said, to your point, even if I get a hamburger or something, I guess it breaks down easier, doesn't fill you up as long, and then you feel like you need to eat more, and you end up getting more calories throughout the day.
Exactly.
What do you say about, and this is just off the top of my head curiosity with the recommended 2,000 calories per day, and they have the chart, and I feel like there's always studies coming out like, okay, dairy was good for you, now dairy's not good for you, and so in my house I have almond milk.
Yeah.
I don't think the only dairy I will have is probably some shredded cheese here and there, but for the most part I'll stick with almond milk, and some snacks I'll eat some peanuts and mixed nuts, but not too much. So what would you say with those, I guess, traditional diets that we kind of grew up learning?
You know, it's a tough question to answer because everybody's got kind of individual dietary needs and requirements. You know, I think, and it depends where you grew up, what you grew up. A lot of people grew up with Bojangles for lunch, or they grew up with McDonald's for breakfast and pizza for dinner. So they didn't really have that. They don't really have a basis of healthy eating that's based on kind of the guidelines that have been recommended for a long time. And one of the other things that you brought up that kind of plays into that is trying to figure out what the healthy eating guidelines are when the media. It's okay. There's all kinds of studies that scientists are publishing every week, and then kind of that's the big story, right? So it's intermittent fasting, or it's eggs are good, eggs are bad, dairy's good, dairy's bad. You know, it's really easy to get distracted by those things.
Yeah.
And so having a focus on, you know, fresh fruits and vegetables if you can, portion control, staying away from fast foods, limiting your soda. You know, if you can do some of those big things, it doesn't really matter what the latest research study shows, because I get confused. I mean, I have a hard time making sense of what comes out each week. Yeah.
I mean, one day we're saying coffee's good for you. The next day we're saying coffee's bad.
I just don't believe the studies that ever say that coffee's bad.
Yeah, I agree.
I will say this. I talked to Dr. Simmons, who we had on a couple of weeks back, and I do coffee with him like every other week. And we went to Haywood Mall to have cocoa bowls. And we were like, this is just a really good snack, but we also feel like it's a dessert almost. So we're like treating ourselves, but it's healthy. Yeah. So he was talking, and he's like, dude, you know, like ever since I started watching my like exactly what I eat and the calories, he was like, I don't even have any fulfillment in it. He was like, I was kind of like a little bit more happy when I was fat and I could eat what I wanted, but I was also like cautious of the healthy stuff. But now he's like, I look at a box and I'm like, calories, salt, saturated. Oh my gosh.
It jumps out at you.
Yeah. He's
right?
like, I just read. He's like, I have to read it now. And it's like, have I become this? And he was like, and I'm like, well, I feel good. I'm the best shape I've ever been in my life. And he's like, but then again, it comes with like that unwanted cautiousness.
I think that's a real important point. Yeah. We want food to be food. I mean, we want to enjoy food. I want to sit down for a meal, and I don't want to have to do a mental calculation or plug it into my phone. How many calories, how much fat is there? Yeah. Because, I mean, one of the reasons I started the Cooking Doc and got into this is because I love to eat. I love good food. Yeah. And to kind of take all the fun and pleasure out of eating food is not at all what I think healthy eating should be about.
Yeah. I've almost found it, for me at least recently, it's an exploration. It's a discovery. To mention cocoa bowls, for example, where have you ever had cocoa bowls with the acai bowls and the fruits and the goji berries? And I mean, it's a mix of flavor that it's good for you. You cheat a little bit if you get the Nutella on top. I like the Nutella on top.
Go for it.
But it's almost an exploration of different flavors, kind of like this sweet potato pizza that I've never had before, cauliflower crust, and other combinations I've found with like pecan encrusted chicken and things like that they're mixtures and experiences I probably would not have found if I didn't go on a healthy eating journey.
Absolutely. I mean, for a long time, you know, you couldn't go out and eat healthy-ish food that wasn't like grilled chicken on a salad. Yeah. Right? I mean, but in the last 10 years, Greenville especially has really improved their options for healthy eating, and it's made it much more of an exploration when you're trying to find healthy foods.
Yeah, and it does get exciting.
It does get exciting.
It does, because you never know what you're going to experience. Like, ooh, that sounds interesting.
Yeah. Or that sounds interesting, but that tastes terrible.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah, I'd never thought of that combination. I'm going to avoid it.
Right.
Something I did see on your website, as you were mentioning, and this is why I know you said you love to eat, and you were saying how, you know, as doctors, you learn what's good for the body, but you don't practice diet dietitian or nutrition or whatnot. You're not experts in that. So for you kind of saw that missing link and you wanted to kind of educate yourself a little bit more on the food that you put into your body. How has that helped your practice with your patients and the interactions that you have and your ability to help them in their day-to-day?
Well, when you typically, as a doctor, before I kind of got into this, if I'm seeing somebody that I think doesn't have the best eating habits, or if I'm seeing somebody that needs to go on a lower sodium diet, or who I think would benefit from, changing their diet in some ways, I could leave them and say, okay, before I see you next time, eat a low sodium diet and eat healthier. Okay, so I would leave them with that, and that's a recipe for failure.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to come back and say, okay, I did everything you said, which was basically nothing. So through the website and the Cooking Doc, it's allowed me to kind of have a space where I can give more practical advice, how to actually get to the point where you're eating a lower sodium diet, but not only that, but how to create food with a lower sodium diet, not as much salt, that also tastes fabulous, right?
Yeah.
Because if you tell somebody to eat a lower sodium diet, they've been used to a high sodium diet all their life, all of a sudden they come home, they stop all their salt, they're going to think it's absolutely terrible, bland. So kind of helps me connect with them, give them kind of more specific examples. And one of the things that really has occurred to me is that even if I talk to my patients and they don't follow specifically what I have to say, the whole idea of the Cooking Doc and my whole passion for the Cooking Doc, it seeps in some way to people, so that even if they don't make the exact changes or follow the recipes on my website, that they're encouraged, that their doctor thinks about healthy eating and good food, and so they kind of take it off on a different path, but kind of still get to the same finish line.
Yeah, I love, because you're pretty much leading by example, almost, where you're kind of saying like, hey, these are things you can do. If you want more resources, you can follow me and find out what I'm doing, which is something that resonated with Jess and I when we saw you, was that, it's one thing to say, okay, the Cooking Doc, but to see you up there cooking and go to your website, see the recipes, and know that you're on a food journey and you're on this healthy eating journey. It's something that even if we don't follow the exact journey, we could take the inspiration, which Jess has not stopped talking about the sweet potato pizza, but now she wants to kind of explore with other recipes in terms of sweet potato and substituting out for where we have a quinoa salad that we make. Kale
I love
and quinoa.
it. Yes.
Now she wants to chop up some sweet potato and put it in there and mix that in.
Perfect.
And that's just, let's try it.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm talking about. That's amazing. Thank you, by the way, for coming to that cooking demo. It was cold and rainy, so
it was
I appreciate you being there.
It was worth it, though. It definitely stuck with us. Have you had any disasters in the kitchen that you wouldn't mind sharing?
I mean, I have had so many that I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm trying to think of a specific example of food that I made that was just terrible. I can't think of anything specifically other than to say that it happens all the time.
Yeah. And if you're like me, do you eat it anyway?
I may eat it, but my family doesn't always eat it.
Yeah.
My daughter is probably my toughest critic. If I'm making a recipe for the website, especially I did some muffins recently, she made me go through batches and batches before it was edible.
Before it was perfect.
And perfect, yes.
Yeah.
I thought it was good along the way, but she didn't.
She's like, not quite there yet. Well, I'd like to, before we kind of wrap it up, I'd like to kind of peek into your family a little bit and your home life and how that's helped you in terms of your journey, not just as a doctor, but with the Cooking Doc practice and everything that you've been working on. How important and how much of a part of the Cooking Doc have they been, even with your daughter signing off on your recipes?
My wife's she's very helpful with me, trying to help me craft my message in a way that will reach other people in a way that they will understand. Sometimes my first pass, the way I think about things, isn't the way that other people will think about things, especially people maybe that haven't eaten quinoa and kale all their life.
Yeah.
So they've been very supportive. My daughter, about 4 years ago, did a cooking video with me.
Nice.
And if you haven't watched that, that's probably my favorite video. We make some healthy, they were gluten-free cookies. Now she's 12. She's not quite as interested in coming on and doing another show with me. But she's my biggest critic. Sometimes I'll be, if I make something that isn't good, she tells me, absolutely don't put that on the show. Sometimes I'll just be talking in the kitchen and talking about my ingredients, and I'm not on the show. She's like, Dad, you sound like you're doing a cooking show. Can you just talk like a normal person? So they're very supportive, and even a lot of the inspiration from my eating and cooking came from my parents and my grandparents. My parents always tried to create a home-cooked meal during the weekdays. They were both busy and working. My grandparents did the same.
Yeah.
So I think that's really kind of given me the background that I needed to pursue this.
Yeah. And one of my last questions on all the podcasts are usually, what are the rainbows that you're chasing with the Cooking Doc and everything you're doing? What are some of the goals that you hope to accomplish here in the near and distant future?
So I'm writing a book. So I would love to get that book published. It's a book that has information about kidney health, and then and how food affects your kidneys, how to keep your kidneys healthy with what you're eating, and then also recipes to go along with it.
Yeah.
That's kind of my short-term goal. And then, the pie in the sky goal is to be on the Food Network and do the Cooking Doc with a healthy cooking show, and reach people in a way that just has a much broader audience.
Yeah. Well, I'm rooting for you. I can't wait for that.
Thanks.
And I hope to get more and more recipes from you in the future and in the near future. And for anybody that's at home, probably sitting on the edge of their seats, trying to find some healthy recipes and wanting to follow you, where can they reach out and find some of your work?
My website is thecookingdoc.co. So that's kind of where I've got the bulk of my work, but I'm active on Instagram at The Cooking Doc. YouTube channel is where we publish all our videos, The Cooking Doc, and Facebook as well.
Nice. Well, I'm excited to check out more of your videos. I'd love to come to the kitchen one day.
Yeah.
And we'll cook together.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
Done.
Well,
I would love to have you do that.
Dr. Shusterman, thank you so much for being on the show today. I'm going to have all those links on how people can reach you in the show notes. So definitely make sure you guys keep an eye out for that. And I love what you were saying before in terms of having a good mentor when you were getting started. Your mentor's name, once again?
Mitchell Rosner.
And that was pivotal for you in terms of heading into your specialty and all that. So for folks listening, some tactical tidbits that you could take home. Getting a good mentor is very helpful in getting to the next level of whatever field you're in. And in terms of diet, Dr. Shusterman, I love when you said find something you could stick with long term. A lot of these fad diets, they can give you the result that you're looking for, but it's not going to stick around because if you go back to the habits that got you to where you didn't want to be. And of course, as Dr. Shusterman says, the Cooking Doc says, change your buds, right?
That's right.
Change your buds. You might be used to the sweet tea, maybe lowering the sugar gradually, and then putting some of those healthy options that he mentioned, the mint, orange, that can help you kind of get more of a healthier lifestyle. With that being said, at the end of the episode, we always say, everybody wants the sunshine, but they don't want the rain. But you can't get the pleasure without a little pain. Let's grow. The No Rain, No Rainbows podcast is recorded at Camaraderie, a collective workspace in Greenville, South Carolina, right off the Swamp Rabbit Trail. If you're looking for a place to grow your business, network with other professionals, and establish your own workspace, Camaraderie is the place to do so.